Chapter 5732, President Gu, who was reprimanded. The corners of everyone's eyes twitched violently. Innocent and innocent. Are you sure you didn't misunderstand the meaning of these words? Did someone use a knife to force you to use spirit stones to buy a flag? And you're innocent and innocent? Shameless. Vice Director Duanmu and the others paid attention to the words, be reasonable and respect the rules. From what she said, if they weren't allowed to enter the upper house, wouldn't they be unreasonable and not respect the rules? Vice-Chancellor Xiao said with a gloomy face, no matter how she talks, the results of the two of them are not above board. Everyone, I suggest that we send them back to the lower house. The other 5 vice-chancellors also felt that Yun Chujiu, Ding Wenru, and the others were just opportunistic and did not have the qualifications to enter the upper house. However, they took advantage of the loophole and were in a dilemma. Vice-Chancellor Duanmu pondered for a moment and said, since we can't make a decision, why don't we report this matter to President Gu? What do you all think? The others immediately nodded in agreement. They had finally thrown this hot potato out. Immediately, Vice-Chancellor Duanmu took out his identity jade token and reported the matter to President Gu. On the other side, President Gu was in the back mountain of the upper house, getting scolded. President Gu stood there like a quail. In front of him stood 2 old men. One of the tall old men pointed at President Gu's nose and cursed angrily, as the president of the upper house of the 10 Directional Academy and the president of the 10 Directional Academy, you don't even know that your shadow guard has been switched. Is that a pig's brain on your neck? If Eboxian hadn't happened to find that corpse, PM afraid that you wouldn't even know that your head has been chopped off. You are so careless. If the disaster came, wouldn't the 10 Directions Academy be destroyed by your hands? You really make me so angry. President Gu was reprimanded like a grandson. He kept wiping the cold sweat on his head and didn't dare to say a word to refute himself. It was his fault that the people who scolded him couldn't be provoked. Alright, everyone has their moments of carelessness. Moreover, those shadow guards rarely show their faces, so it's not strange that he didn't notice. Since it has already happened, it's useless to scold him. We are going into seclusion soon, so you'd better talk to him about some serious matters. The short elder advised. The tall elder glared at President Gu and then said, after we go into seclusion, you have to pay close attention to the situation of Tao Tai's seal. But there's no need to interfere. What should come will come eventually. The students of the academy had been living too comfortably these years. If disaster really came, it would be useless. Find an opportunity to throw them into the 6 Directions Waterside Pavilion and let them experience it. President Gu was suddenly shocked. He mumbled, the 6 Directions Waterside Pavilion is connected to the seal of Tao Tai. Many of the monsters in it have been contaminated by the fierce aura of Tao Tai. Even the lecturers may not be able to escape unscathed. If the students were to go to the 6 Directions Waterside Pavilion to train, I'm afraid. Humph. What do you know? Only when they are in a life-and-death situation can their fighting spirit and potential be stimulated. Otherwise, what's the use of raising a bunch of little sheep? The tall old man rebuked angrily. President Gu shrunk his neck and didn't dare to speak anymore. Alright, we are going into closed-door cultivation. If it's not an emergency, don't disturb us. Scram back. The tall old man said snappily. President Gu politely bowed and took his leave. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and realized that his identity jade tablet had been trembling non-stop. He hadn't noticed it earlier. When he heard the news inside, his first reaction was to send the person back to the lower house. However, when he heard the names of the 2 students, he changed his mind. Which branch did Chapter 5733 go to? Yan Qingcheng. When President He had given him the corpse, he had told him that it was a student named Yan Qingcheng who had fished up the corpse. If not for the fact that she had fished up the corpse, it would not have taken long for the corpse to be devoured by the sea beasts. He would not have been able to discover that one of his shadow guards had been swapped out. Speaking of which, he should be thanking Yan Qingqing instead. Thinking of this, President Gu replied, the responsibility for this incident lies with the academy and has nothing to do with the two of them. Since they meet the conditions to enter the upper house, let's handle it according to the established procedures. Vice-Chancellor Duanmu repeated President Gu's reply. Although Vice-Chancellor Xiao was so angry that he gritted his teeth, it was already a done deal. There was nothing he could do about it. He Xinjiu was naturally very happy. If it wasn't for President Gu's miraculous stroke, she would have to spend a lot of effort to convince him to stay. This fellow had labeled President Gu as a good person in his heart. Manager Yang saw that the matter had been settled and began to handle the admission procedures for Yun Chuzhou and Ding Wenru. However, there was another problem. The middle and upper houses of the 10 Directions Academy were set up according to the principles of spiritual power, pill refinement, talisman seal, beast taming, array formation, and artifact refining. Therefore, after the students of the middle house were admitted to the upper house, they could directly enter the corresponding branches. However, the lower house was set up according to the spirit root branch, so which of the 6 branches should these 2 students enter? Manager Yang turned to look at the 6 vice-chancellors. Vice-chancellors, which branch should these 2 students enter? The 6 chancellors looked at each other, and Vice-Chancellor Mu of the beast-taming branch hurriedly expressed his stance. Our beast-taming branch has a higher requirement for cultivation, and the 2 of them don't quite meet it. Vice-Chancellor Dongfang of the Talisman Division also hurriedly said, the 2 of them have fire spirit roots, so it's not suitable for them to enter our Talisman Division. Vice-Chancellor Duanmu, I think your Alchemy Division is more suitable. Vice-Chancellor Duanmu of the Alchemy Division glared at him and said, alchemy requires talent. It's more suitable for the 2 of them to go to the Spirit Power Division. Vice-Chancellor Xiao snorted, our spirit faculty doesn't want trash. Almost instantly, the 6 vice-chancellors expressed their unwillingness to take over Yun Chuzhou and Ding Wenru. The situation immediately beck. So what if they took advantage of the situation to enter the upper faculty? No faculty was willing to accept them. They deserved it. Manager Yang looked troubled. The 6 branches were not willing to accept them. What was he supposed to do? He looked at Yun Chuzhou and Ding Wenru sympathetically. He thought to himself, these 2 students were just looking for trouble. It would be great if they were studying in the lower house, but they had to come to the upper house to be tortured. But now, none of the branches were willing to accept them. They were so pitiful and pitiful. Yun Chuzhou sighed. Manager Yang, are there no other branches apart from the 6 major branches? Why don't you just set up a separate branch for the 2 of us to avoid being despised by others? The moment Yun Chuzhou's words left her mouth, it immediately attracted a wave of boos. How shameless! Who does she think she is? She even set up a separate branch for them. Why doesn't she go to heaven? That's right. If I were them, I would quickly scram back to the lower house to avoid embarrassing myself. Since no branch is willing to take them in, I guess they can only scram back to the lower house. Actually, they can also do odd jobs in the upper house instead of going back to the lower house. Ha! Chapter 5734, The Primal Division. Manager Yang seemed to have thought of something and his eyes lit up. He looked at the 6 vice-chancellors and said, everyone, actually, our upper academy has another division besides the 6 major divisions. Vice-Chancellor Duanmu blurted out, are you talking about the Primal Division? Vice-Chancellor Dongfang clapped his hands and said, that's right, there's the Primal Division. The Primal Division has the lowest requirements for people. I think it's most suitable for the 2 of them to enter the Primal Division. When the other chancellors saw this, they immediately understood what Deputy Chancellor Dongfang was thinking. As the saying goes, if a fellow Taoist doesn't die, then this poor Taoist will die. Whichever branch that accepts these 2 good-for-nothings would be a disaster. It would be most suitable for them to be sent to the Primal Chaos branch. Thus, they immediately agreed. That's right. These 2 students have strange bones and extraordinary talent. One look and you can tell that they are good seedlings of the Primal Chaos branch. Let's assign them to the Primal Chaos branch. Even Vice Director Xiaofu agreed, that's right. They are indeed suitable to go to the Primal Division. Ding Wenru uneasily tugged on Yun Chujia's sleeve. Even a fool could tell that the so-called Primal Division was definitely not a good place to go. Yun Chujio did not have any reaction. Her goal was to enter the upper academy to find the recipe for alchemy and talismans. It did not matter which division she went to, as long as she could enter the library pavilion. Moreover, no matter which branch she was in, it would not hinder her and the pretty boy from being intimate with each other. Therefore, this fellow did not care about going to the prehistoric branch. Although Manager Yang had already made up his mind, he still pretended to ask, Yan Qingcheng, Ding Wenru, are you willing to enter the prehistoric branch? Yun Chujio immediately nodded and said, since all the chancellors think that we are suitable to enter the prehistoric branch, we are naturally willing. Thank you, Vice-Chancellors. Vice-Chancellors Duanmu and the others immediately looked a little uncomfortable, and they felt guilty for bullying the little girl. Yun Chuzhou pretended not to see it and said happily, Manager Yang, please quickly go through the procedures for us so that we can report to the prehistoric branch as soon as possible. Manager Yang's conscience was also a little painful, but he was also very helpless. The 6 branches were not willing to accept them. It was already very good that he could help them find a place to stay. Therefore, Manager Yang quickly finished the admission procedures for the 2 of them. Manager Yang's subordinates spent a lot of effort to find 4 sets of the prehistoric branch's academy uniform in a corner, 2 sets for each person to change into. Manager Yang handed the academy uniform and other items to Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru and coughed dryly. Most people don't know the location of the prehistoric branch. I have already marked it on the map for you. You can follow the map to find it. Ding Wenru felt a chill in her heart when she heard what he said. Most people don't know the location of the prehistoric branch. What did this mean? It meant that the prehistoric branch had not recruited students for many years. Perhaps the 2 of them were really the only ones in the prehistoric branch. Yun Chujio did not mind it at all. She thanked them with a smile and bowed to Vice Director Duanmu and the others before leaving. Vice Director Duanmu shook his head. Aren't we going too far? They are just 2 little girls, and the prehistoric institution is, Vice Director Xiaofu said snappily, stop pretending. Let me ask you, if you don't have the heart, let them enter your alchemy institution. Vice Director Duanmu immediately changed the topic. About that, I didn't say anything just now. What a joke. The 6 great divisions always had to rank in each assessment. If they had 2 more useless students, wouldn't their alchemy division be dragged down? Chapter 57:35 glittered with golden light as soon as they left the registration area. Ding Wenru said with a bitter face, Qingcheng, the primeval institution is definitely not a good place to go. What should we do? Since we're already here, let's just take it easy. Let's go and take a look first, Yun Chujio said indifferently. Seeing her so calm, Ding Wenru's originally anxious mood also calmed down a little. Forget it. Anyway, she only needed to cling tightly to Qingcheng's thigh. She could trust Qingcheng and obtain eternal life. The 2 of them searched for a while according to the map, and finally saw a dilapidated small courtyard between the alchemy branch and the talisman seal branch. The plaque at the door was covered in dust. Only the word, desolate, could be vaguely seen in the 4 words, primal branch. The other 3 words were completely covered in dust. Ding Wenru's heart instantly turned cold. Qingcheng, this is the desolate branch? How can such a small courtyard be called a branch? Also, look at the plaque. It's covered in dust. Clearly, no one has entered for many years. What's the difference between us and being exiled? Yun Chujio had long expected this and was not too surprised. Although the place was small, it looked like there were only her and Ding Wenru. It was just convenient for her to mess around. She looked around and found a few people wearing the uniform of handymen who had just come out of the alchemy division. She immediately waved her hand and shouted, Hey, please come over here. The handymen didn't understand, but they still walked over. This student, is there something you want to talk to us about? Help us clean this courtyard, Yun Chuzhou said with a smile. The few odd job workers looked at each other. The person who spoke earlier said, I'm sorry. We are all obeying orders. Unless it's arranged by the supervisor, we cannot do things privately. Moreover, this courtyard has been abandoned for many years. Why bother to clean it up? After a period of time, it will still be covered in dust. It won't be abandoned in the future. The two of us will be students of this prehistoric branch in the future. Yun Chuzhou said with a faint smile. The odd job workers were stunned for a moment. Were these two people from the prehistoric branch? What a joke. Hadn't the prehistoric branch been abandoned all this time? They looked at Yun Chuzhou and Ding Wenru's academy uniforms carefully and realized that their academy uniforms were different from the academy uniforms of the 6 major branches. Was what they said true? Why did these two students choose the prehistoric branch out of the blue? Looking at their cultivation levels, they immediately had a guess. Could it be that they were not liked and were sent to the prehistoric branch? The servants' faces immediately showed some contempt. The person who spoke earlier said, sorry, we can't help without the manager's permission. Besides, we are very busy and don't have time. Goodbye. Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. 2,000 high-grade spirit stones per person, do you have the time now? Yes. Time is like water in cotton, you'll have it after squeezing a little. That's right, that's right. No matter how busy we are, we won't take too long. This student, you can just wait by the side, well start working now. That's right, it's not that we're boasting, but among the odd job workers in the upper house, we're the most diligent and capable. I guarantee that we'll clean up this courtyard for you too. Ding Wenru was speechless. As expected, money could make the devil turn the millstone. The speed at which these people changed their faces was too fast. However, Qingqing was really rich. She had spent so many spirit stones to buy the flag before, and now she was actually so rich and overbearing. As expected, she was hugging onto those big, shiny legs. Chapter 5736 was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. The commotion soon attracted the attention of some students from the Alchemy Division and the Talisman Seal Division. After all, the Primeval Academy was in the middle of the two divisions. Immediately, some students came over to watch. When they saw the academy uniforms on Yun Chuzhou and Ding Wenru, they could not help but point and point. Didn't the Primeval Academy say that it would not recruit students for a few years? Why were there 2 new students all of a sudden? When someone recognized Yan Qingqing, the crowd immediately exploded. Isn't she Bei Ye's sweetheart, that Yan Qingqing? She actually entered the upper house. It's really her. How shameless, she actually chased him to the upper house. She's simply a piece of dog skin plaster. I think Bei Yu must have used some unspeakable means to get her. Bah! Bei Yu was only bewitched by her for a moment. She has no appearance, no cultivation, so what right does she have to make Bei Yu like her? At this time, Xiao Yanxiao just happened to walk out of the alchemy division. When she heard Yan Qingcheng's name, her face immediately sank. What? Yan Qingcheng actually entered the upper house. How is this possible? Yan Qingcheng was an audit student of the lower house. Even if she was lucky, she could only enter the middle house. How could she possibly enter the upper house? She must have heard wrongly. At this time, Jia Qiuyun, who had always been on good terms with her, came over and said, Lianxiao, my cousin is from the middle house. This time, she entered the upper house. She just sent me a message saying that this Yan Qingcheng and her follower used spirit stones to buy a lot of flags during the big exam. The two of them tied for first place, and their points were much higher than the third place. That's why they entered the upper house. Tao Yenner, who was beside her, said in disbelief, isn't this cheating? The academy actually allowed such a person to enter the upper house. Isn't this too ridiculous? Jia Qiuyun curled her lips. I heard that they originally didn't want to take them in, but President Gu said that this was the responsibility of a loophole in the rules and had nothing to do with them, so he left them behind. The funny thing was that the 6 branches didn't want them. In the end, they were sent to the primeval branch and left to fend for themselves. When Xiao Lianxiao heard Jia Qian's words, a flash of viciousness flashed in her eyes. It wasn't a bad thing to let Yan Qingcheng and the others enter the upper house. Previously, Yan Qingcheng was in the lower house and she couldn't do anything about it. Since she came to her own doorstep, she would naturally treat her well. Now, she didn't need to do anything. She just needed to spread the tea. Naturally, there would be people who disliked her. In addition, there were only the 2 of them in the primal division. It would be easy to deal with them. Just as Xiao Lianxiao was thinking about it, someone exclaimed, "Bei Yu is here." She raised her head and saw Bei Yu slowly walking over. Although he was just walking normally, he forcefully surpassed all the boys around him. Some people were born to be the center of attention, even if he did not do anything. Hei Xinjiu also heard the crowd's exclamations. She turned her head and saw that it was really a certain someone. She immediately pounced on him like a swallow. "Brother Bei Yu, we can be together every day from now on." A faint smile appeared on the certain someone's indifferent face. He stroked her hair with a hint of indulgence. The faces of the girls present were filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. They wished they could push Yun Chuzhou away and replace her. They had never seen such a gentle side of Bei Yu, but it just so happened that the person he was gentle with was that damn Yan Qingcheng. Chapter 57-37 Scold him to death. Ding Wenru watched from the side as she lit a candle in her heart for Hei Xinjiu. These upper house girls were much crazier than those in the lower house. Qingcheng's days in the future would probably be difficult to endure. The jealousy in Xiao Lianqiu's heart spread like poisonous weeds. She felt that if she continued to watch, she would definitely not be able to resist and directly kill Yan Qingcheng. She definitely could not let the 2 of them have a chance to be alone together. Otherwise, Bei Yu would definitely be even more bewitched by that shameless Yan Qingcheng. When she thought of this, she took out Deputy Director Ziaphus' voice transmission talisman and said a few words. A moment later, Di Baiming's identity jade token started to tremble. After he sent his divine sense in, he could not help but frown and said to Yun Chuzhou, "The lecturer is looking for me for something. PLL look for you later." Hei Xinjiu didn't mind. Since she was already in the upper house, she had plenty of opportunities to flirt with the gigolo. Hence, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed a certain someone's face, "I'll wait for you." The girls instantly exploded. This Yan Qingcheng was too shameless. She actually dared to tease Bei Yu in public. This pervert. This woman, pervert, wolf. This flower, infatuated. A certain someone resisted the urge to kiss her and turned around to leave. Xiao Lianxiao gave Jia Qiuyan a look. Jia Qiuyan immediately understood and said in a strange tone, "Everyone, you probably don't know, right? The reason why Yan Qingcheng and her lackey were able to enter the upper house was because they spent money to buy a flag during the big exam. The 6 branches didn't want such a depraved student, so they sent them to the primeval branch." Everyone was shocked at first, then they exploded again. They pointed at Yun Chuzhou and Ding Wenru. They were just short of throwing rotten eggs and rotten vegetable leaves. Ding Wenru finally understood why Qin Linglong and Gu Yeni didn't come to the upper house with them. With their thin skin, they would probably cry themselves to death. She was different. Although she wasn't as thick-skinned as Qingcheng, she wasn't an ordinary person. Just treat these people as dogs barking. On the other side, after President Gu returned to his courtyard to settle some matters, Manager Yang came in with the list of new students and information to report. Students were the foundation of the academy, so President Gu attached great importance to the admission of every new student. Although he would not personally come, he would still check the qualifications and situation of the new students. He took the materials that Manager Yang handed over and flipped through them. When he saw the last page, his hand trembled and almost dropped the materials in his hand on the table. President Gus' face was filled with shock. Yan Qingcheng and Ding Wenru have been arranged to enter the prehistoric branch? Manager Yang did not know what President Gu was thinking. He did not dare to make things up. He told him everything that had happened. President, the 6 branches are not willing to accept the 2 of them, and they can't send them back to the lower house, so they can only arrange for the 2 of them to enter the prehistoric branch. Although the primal division has been abandoned for many years and doesn't have a lecturer, the 2 of them can go to other branches to get some classes, and they won't drag down any of the branches. This can be considered to be the best of both worlds. President Gu smiled bitterly, thinking to himself, who said that the primal division didn't have a lecturer? Were those 2 at the back of the mountain ghosts? Everyone thought that the primal division had been down and out, and that was why there had been no students. How could they know that the primal division had been unable to recruit students because they had extremely high requirements for students? If those 2 who were in closed-door cultivation knew that the primal chaos branch had taken in 2 good-for-nothings, would they scold him to death? Chapter 57:38 Manager Yang saw the bitter smile on President Gus' face and asked carefully, President Gu, is there anything wrong? President Gu had a hard time saying it. The 2 people at the back of the mountain had been in seclusion for many years. Even the chancellors did not know about their existence, so it was not appropriate for him to say it out loud to Manager Yang. He thought about it again. The 2 people had already gone into seclusion. This seclusion might take 3 to 5 years, or it might take 8 to 10 years. By then, Yan Qingcheng and Ding Wenru would have already graduated. Even if they were angry, they could not do anything about it. Moreover, Yan Qingcheng and Ding Wenru's cultivation was so low, and the upper house's assessment was very strict. They might even be sent back to the lower house. President Gu thought about it, and his originally worried heart was relieved. He said to Manager Yang lightly, it's okay. The prehistoric branch is currently unmanaged. You should take care of the 2 of them. On the other side, the students surrounding Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru had already dispersed. Anyway, there was still plenty of time in the future. There would be plenty of opportunities to laugh at these 2 good-for-nothings in the future. Yun Chujio did not care about this at all. She took out her chair and played 5-piece chess with Ding Wenru to kill time. This fellow felt that playing 5-piece chess with Ding Wenru was simply too confident. It was much better than being tortured by a gigolo. A gigolo was simply inhuman. The efficiency of the few odd-job workers was very high. In addition, the courtyard of the primal institution was not too big. In less than 2 hours, it was completely cleaned up. Satisfied, Yun Chujio gave the promised spirit stones to the odd-job workers, and she gave each of them an extra 100 spirit stones. The odd-job workers could not help but be overjoyed. Before they left, they said politely, Student Yen, if you need us to do anything in the future, just let us know. We will definitely be on call. Ding Wenru rolled her eyes in her heart. Sure enough, money could make the devil push the millstone. Besides a small courtyard, there was only a row of bungalows in the primeval subdivision. Qingcheng, why do you think the primeval subdivision is so miserable? There are only a few bungalows. At the very least, there should be a meeting hall or something like that. In any case, it's just the 2 of us, so be it. Yun Chujio was very satisfied. No matter the size, it was fine as long as she was comfortable. The 2 of them made arrangements for a few rooms. The bedroom, study, living room, dining room, and even a small kitchen were all ready. Ding Wenru grinned. Qingcheng, don't tell me. With this place seems to be our home. Home. Yun Chujio's originally high-spirited mood suddenly became a little depressed. Her parents were still in the custody of the Zen sect. For her now, the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall was a behemoth that she could not afford to provoke. She was afraid that she still had a long way to go before she could save her parents. Seeing this, Ding Wenru knew that her words might have touched Yun Chujio's heartbreak. She quickly changed the topic. Qingcheng, now that we are in the upper house, you will be able to be intimate with your brother Beiyu in the future. Don't worry. When your big brother Beiyu comes, I will be tactful and go out for a walk. I won't disturb you at all. Ha! He Xinjiu knew that Ding Wenru had said that on purpose, but she still played along and joked a little. She was not a self-pitying person to begin with. She would never give up no matter how great the difficulties and obstacles were. If not for her personality, she would have collapsed long ago when she found out that she had a heavenly thunder spiritual root, which was not tolerated by the Tian Dao. The sky had already turned dark when the two of them were so busy. He Xinjiu frowned. The pretty boy said that he would come to visit her when he came back from the lecturer's office. Why did he not come? Chapter 57:39. Just as Yun Chuzhou was thinking, the voice transmission talisman vibrated and a voice came from inside. I just came back from Instructor Zheng's place. The academy has a rule that no one is allowed to go out beyond the hour of Wu. I will come to find you after class tomorrow. Yun Chuzhou did not care too much. There was still a long way to go, so she replied with a smile, okay, see you tomorrow. Come, give me a kiss. After a long while, a faint came from the voice transmission rune. He Xinjiu curled her lips. What a tsundere. The next day, He Xinjiu slept until the sun was high in the sky. She stretched herself and walked out of the room. Ding Wenru heard the noise and walked out of the room as well. She asked, Qingcheng, you're up. I just remembered something. The primeval institution doesn't seem to have any lecturers. What about our classes in the future? That's easy. We can get the schedules of the other branches, and we can pick those who are interested to join our classes. Not only can we learn something, but we also don't have to finish our homework. It's so wonderful. He Xinjiu said smugly. Ding Wenru's eyes lit up, but soon she said worriedly, will the other branches not allow us to join their classes? After all, we are not students of the other branches. Yes, no, yes. I spent so many spirit stones to buy a flag, I can't let it go to waste. I'll get Mo Lao-san to get us the class schedule right away. Mo Lao-san was one of the odd job workers from yesterday, and he had more prestige among those odd job workers. Yun Chuzhou used her identity jade token to send a message to Mo Lao-san, and in less than 2 hours, Mo Lao-san came over eagerly. Student Yen, this is the schedule for each grade of the 6 major branches. Although Mo Lao-san was only a handyman, his information was more well-informed than some students. After all, these handymen worked in various places, so they had more sources of information. Yun Chuzhou was very satisfied. She gave Mo Lao-san 2,000 upper-grade spirit stones and sent him away. Yun Chuzhou glanced at the schedule and then asked Ding Wenru, which branch are you going to take lessons from? Ding Wenru said a little embarrassedly, I want to learn how to refine weapons. Yun Chuzhou, alright, this was a good match for her figure. Something like swinging a sledgehammer was very suitable for her. Today's class for the new students of the refining branch is in the afternoon. You can cultivate in the prehistoric branch while I go to the spiritual energy branch for a stroll. After all, I'm a very studious person. Ding Wenru rolled her eyes. If she wanted to see Beiyu, she could just say it out loud. Studious my ass. He Xinjiu had been to the spiritual energy faculty once before, so she arrived. As this fellow had gotten up relatively late, the spiritual energy faculty was already in class, so this fellow sneaked into the teaching hall. There were not many students in the teaching hall. After all, the number of students in the upper house was much smaller than the number of students in the lower house. The lecturer on the stage was none other than Instructor Zheng, whom Beiyu had mentioned in the voice transmission talisman yesterday. He did not know Yun Chuzhou. When he saw Yun Chuzhou sneaking in, he immediately rebuked her angrily, that student, stop right there. Why are you late? Don't you know that I hate it when students are late? Yun Chuzhou immediately became the focus of attention. Everyone's gaze fell on her. Someone immediately recognized her and gloated, "Instructor Zheng, she's not a student of our spirit power faculty. She's Yan Qingqing from the primeval faculty." Primeval faculty? Yan Qingqing. Instructor Zheng was a direct descendant of Director Xiaofu, so he naturally knew about the grudge between Director Xiaofu and Yan Qingqing. His face immediately darkened. Chapter 5740, The only two students, Yan Qingqing, since you're a student of the Primal Division, why did you come to our Spiritual Energy Division's teaching hall? Instructor Zheng coldly rebuked. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes. Because PM diligent and eager to learn. Everyone. If you have the ability to say these words, don't stare straight at Beiyu. If you have the ability to say these words, don't shamelessly squeeze next to Beiyu. Instructor Zheng slammed the table, "Get out. Our spirit energy faculty doesn't allow students from other faculties to listen in." He Xinjiu ignored Instructor Zheng. This fellow had already squeezed to Di Baiming's side. Due to Di Baiming's alienating aura, both sides were empty. He Xinjiu sat directly on Di Baiming's right, and even playfully winked at Di Baiming. "Yan Qingqing, didn't you hear what I said? Our spirit faculty doesn't allow bystanders. Get out now. If not, I can only ask the guards to chase you out." Instructor Zheng said angrily. Yun Chuzhou glanced at him, then moved to Di Baiming's side and kissed him on the cheek. Only then did she stand up. "If you don't want to listen, then don't listen. What are you arguing about? Brother Beiyu, I'm leaving. Remember to look for me after class." A certain someone nodded his head with some helplessness and doting. He really did not understand why Yun Chuzhou came over. Could it be that she just wanted to draw a circle of hatred? Instructor Zheng was so angry that he was twitching. There had never been any arrogant students in the upper house. It was really too much. They had to be severely punished. He thought of several ways to severely punish them in his heart. However, he suddenly thought of something. There were no lecturers in the prehistoric branch, let alone the chancellor. Who was he going to complain to? He Xinjiu had thought of this long ago. Although she and Ding Wenru were poor in exile, it meant that no one could control them directly. She came to the spiritual power branch to test the tolerance of the academy toward her. After leaving the spiritual power branch, this guy did not go to other branches, but went to President Gus' courtyard. In his heart, this guy had already labeled President Gu as a good person. Since he was a good person, he had to make the best use of everything. He had to hug President Gu's thigh properly. President Gu was not someone that anyone could meet. As soon as this guy arrived at the entrance of President Gus' courtyard, he was stopped by the guards. This guy spoke a lot of good words, but the guards were not moved. Yun Chuzhou nodded. "Brothers guards, you really can't be promiscuous with your wealth and power. I really admire you. Since you won't let me in, then PLL wait here for President Gu." Everyone was willing to listen to good war. Although it was their duty not to let Yun Chuzhou in, they did not chase her away when they saw her sitting on a small horse nearby and waiting for the rabbit. At this moment, an old man's voice came from inside, "Let her in." "Yes, President." A cunning look flashed across Yun Chuzhou's eyes. President Gu was not deaf, so he could naturally hear the noises outside. She had said a lot of sincere praises to him just now. He Xinjiu was brought into President Gus' courtyard by a guard. The courtyard was not luxurious, but it was very spacious. From this point, one could see some clues about President Gus' character. He was calm and open-minded. The guard brought Yun Chuzhou to President Gus' study and then left. Yun Chuzhou bowed respectfully. The only second student of the prehistoric branch, Yan Qingqing, greets President Gu. President Gu. Chapter 5741, You can leave now. President Gu said calmly, "Take a seat." President Gu sized up Yun Chuzhou as he spoke. The little girl in front of him had a delicate and pretty face. She was not outstanding, but her eyes were like a clear spring, crafty and smart. As for her cultivation, well, it was better not to mention it. Hei Shinjo followed the good advice and sat on a chair at the side. However, she did not sit down casually. She only sat half of her but on the chair, showing her respect. President Gu naturally noticed this as well. His eyes flashed. This little girl was really smart. Why are you looking for me? President Gu asked indifferently. Yun Chujo immediately stood up and bowed again. President, I am here to thank you for giving Ding Wenru and me the opportunity to enter the upper house to study. If it wasn't for you, we might not have been able to stay in the upper house. I will remember your great kindness in my heart. From now on, you will be my savior, Yan Qingcheng. I will go through fire and water for you. President Gu might not have asked a student to do anything for him, but Hei Xinjia's words were quite pleasing to his ears. However, he did not show any expression on his face. He said calmly, since you have fulfilled the rules of entering the upper house, you should be admitted into the upper house. There's no need to thank me. If you came here to express your gratitude, you can go back. President, actually, I came here for some other things. Our prehistoric branch doesn't have a lecturer, so naturally, there's no one to teach us. Can Ding Wenru and I go to other branches to freeload? Yun Chujo asked earnestly. President Gu felt that this was a reasonable request. He couldn't let the two of them fend for themselves, right? Thus, he nodded. Of course. You can go to any of the 6 branches to get free lessons. However, there is one thing that you must abide by the rules of each branch. If you cause trouble, you will be severely punished. Yun Chujo immediately said happily, yes, President. Don't worry, I don't dare to guarantee anything about Ding Wenru. I will definitely be obedient. I have always followed the rules. I have always been a good student with excellent character and learning. President Gu recalled some rumors about this little girl in front of him, and the corner of his mouth twitched. A good student who was obedient would spend spirit stones to buy a flag? He was lying. In order to cover up his loss of composure, President Gu casually asked, are you good at any of the 6 skills of cultivators? Yun Chujo bared her little white teeth, counted with her fingers, and said, I am not good at many things. I am only good at alchemy, talisman making, and beast controlling. My spiritual power is also passable, but array formation and artifact making are not good. I only know a little about them. President Gu, you can leave now. The subtext in his heart was to get as far away as possible. He was simply boasting shamelessly. He really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even the 2 people at the back of the mountain didn't dare to say such big words like her. The reason why the primeval subdivision hadn't been able to recruit students was because they had extremely high requirements for students. In addition to spiritual power, they had to be proficient in at least 2 spells. However, this was too difficult. A person's energy and talent were limited. It was already very difficult to master 1 spell, but it was even more difficult to master 2. This Yan Qingcheng actually boasted shamelessly that she was proficient in 3 spells, and that she also had some understanding of array formations and refining. This was simply a bunch of nonsense. Hei Shinjo blinked her eyes. She could roughly guess President Gu Y's thoughts and said pitifully, well, President, you must remember to inform the 6 branches about your free time. If I'm kicked out, I'll come here and cry. Chapter 57-42, The Primeval Academy was not simple. President Gu was speechless as he looked at the pitiful Hei Shinjo. He had been the dean for many years and had met countless students. No matter how strong the students' backgrounds were, in front of him, there was no one who was as relaxed as this Yan Qingcheng. Although she appeared to be very respectful and even sat on the empty seat, he could see that this little girl was not afraid of him at all. She did not have any fear because he was the dean of the 10 Directions Academy. It did not seem like she was facing someone in a high position, but more like a junior who was acting coquettishly and hitting her elders. President Gu had never taken a wife in his entire life. His family members were few and far between. This was the first time he had experienced the feeling of a junior acting coquettishly and hitting her in front of him. To be honest, although it was a little strange, he did not dislike it. Although his emotions were complicated, he did not show it on his face. He said lightly, "I will send an order immediately. You and Ding Wenru can go and join the class. Also, let me emphasize one thing. Although no one from the primeval institution will restrain you for the time being, I will not forgive anyone who complains to me. Do you understand?" Hei Shinjo blinked her eyes. "President, why did I listen to you? Will there be a lecturer in the primeval institution teaching us in the future? Didn't they say that the primeval institution has been abandoned for many years?" President Gu did not expect Yun Chujo to be so sharp that she had caught the flaw in his words. Naturally, he could not tell her about the two people in the back mountain, but he could not say that there were no lecturers in the primeval institution. He coughed and said, "Don't ask so many questions. In short, it's your honor to be able to enter the primeval institution with Ding Wenru. Don't disgrace the title of the primeval institution." Hei Shinjo was so smart. He sensed something unusual from President Gus' words. This guy tactfully did not ask any more questions. Instead, he straightened his back and said, "President, don't worry. Since I'm a student of the primeval institution, I will naturally protect the reputation of the primeval institution. I will definitely not tarnish the reputation of the primeval institution." President Gu naturally would not believe her nonsense. Putting everything else aside, her cultivation was so low that it would not take long for her to be sent back to the lower house. After Hei Shinjo left President Gus' courtyard, her black eyes rolled around. It seemed that the prehistoric institution wasn't simple. However, it made sense. The name of the prehistoric institution was much more imposing than the alchemy institution or the beast taming institution. How could it be simple? However, how powerful was this prehistoric institution? After Hei Shinjo returned to the prehistoric institution, she told Ding Wenru that President Gu had agreed to let them skip classes. Ding Wenru gave her a thumbs up. "Qingcheng, you're really amazing. Oh right, I'm going to the weapon refining institution to skip classes this afternoon. Do you want to go with me?" Yun Chujo shook her head. "I'm not interested in weapon refining. Besides, if I go, it'll be drawing hatred for you. You should go by yourself." "Why? Are you afraid?" Ding Wenru pouted. "I'm afraid? Isn't it just sarcasm? It was so difficult in ascending Heaven Dock, and I survived. Why should I be afraid of them gossiping? Just treat it as a dog barking." Yun Chujo was very satisfied with Ding Wenru's thick skin. Birds of a feather flocked together. She and Ding Wenru were indeed a perfect match. Hei Shinjo suddenly felt very hungry. She could not wait to go to the canteen to get some food. She cursed in her heart. It must be Red Claw. Her spirit stones were going to suffer again. Raising a foodie was really a long story. Chapter 57-43, Can you understand what I'm saying? Hei Shinjo immediately released her red claw and threw a pile of spirit stones on the ground. She snapped, "Eat! Eat! I'll eat you to death." Ding Wenru was dumbfounded. What was wrong with Qingcheng? Was she crazy? What nonsense was she talking about? However, in the next moment, her knowledge was refreshed. That red claw actually pounced into the pile of spiritual stones, and those spiritual stones were decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ding Wenru felt that her whole body was in a bad state. Was there something wrong with her eyes, or was she lacking in knowledge? Which spiritual beast could directly devour spiritual stones? This was simply beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. She must have not slept well last night and had hallucinated. Ding Wenru was still in a daze when she heard Hei Shinjo say, "Sister Ding, let's go to the courtyard for lunch. I'm starving." Ding Wenru pinched herself to make sure that she was not dreaming. Then, with a stiff expression, she went into the courtyard with Yun Chujo. There was a lot of food in Yun Chujia's storage ring. She casually took out a few items and placed them on the table. Then, she began to eat like a whirlwind. Ding Wenru was dumbfounded. Even though Qingqing was usually gluttonous, she did not eat much. What was going on today? Why did she look like a hungry wolf? Yun Chujio was so hungry that she felt uncomfortable. She ignored Ding Wenru. It was only after she ate 5 big bowls of rice and finished 6 plates of dishes that she burped and said, "I'm finally half full." Ding Wenru. Yun Chujio took out some more dishes and placed them on the table. This time, she ate at a much more normal speed and said, "Sister Ding, I'm not going to hide it from you. I'm like this because of that damn claw. However, after it ate the spirit stones, I won't be so hungry anymore." Can you understand what I'm saying? Ding Wenru, who had a dumbfounded look on her face, shook her head like a rattle drum. She could not understand it. What was going on? Yun Chujio was not surprised. Well, most people would not be able to understand. It doesn't matter if you don't understand. Anyway, if my appetite grows in the future, just don't be surprised. Ding Wenru's ability to accept things was not bad. Although she still did not quite understand it, but thinking about it, the person in front of her was a pervert. It was normal for anything to happen to a pervert. Yes, that was it. Ding Wenru came back to her senses and smelled the aroma of the food. She didn't think too much and quickly started eating. However, she would glance into the house from time to time. That red claw could eat spiritual stones. It couldn't possibly eat people too, right? Ding Wenru shivered for some reason. Sure enough, it wasn't easy to hug a thigh. It was too scary. Yun Chujio looked at her and couldn't help but laugh. She didn't point it out. This guy was a little full from eating, so he stood up and walked around the courtyard to digest his food. However, as he walked, he stopped moving. Ding Wenru didn't understand. "Qingqing, what's wrong?" Yun Chujio pointed at the wall and said, "The material used for this wall is different from the wall at the entrance. This wall seems to be built from the back." She went to the other wall and looked at it. It's the same here. The walls on both sides are built from the back. Built from the back? That's normal. Didn't they say that the prehistoric branch had been abandoned for many years? I guess the wall collapsed, so they rebuilt it. Ding Wenru said nonchalantly. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. No, I think it should be Jiu occupying the magpie's nest. If my guess is right, the prehistoric branch used to be very big, but now it's occupied by the alchemy branch and the talisman seal branch. It's really shameless. Chapter 57-44 The dove occupying the magpie's nest. Ding Wenru was stunned. What? You're saying that this wall was built by the alchemy division and the talisman seal division? They occupied the place of the prehistoric division. Yun Chujio snorted coldly. Although I don't have any evidence, it's basically not wrong. Think about it, no matter how bad the prehistoric division is, it's still a division. How can it only have a few rooms? Ding Wenru suddenly understood and said, "Qingqing, needless to say, what you said does make sense. No matter how unpopular the primeval subdivision is, it shouldn't only have so little space. No wonder the plaque at the door looks quite imposing even though it's covered in dust. It's so small inside. So it's occupied by someone else." Ding Wenru sighed again. This is the so-called saying that when people leave, the tea will be cold, and the world will be cold. Even if they knew that the alchemy division and the talisman division had occupied the territory of the primordial division, they could only pretend not to know. We can't let them return their territory to us, right? Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. It's only right and proper to repay the debt. It's fine that the primordial division didn't have an owner, but now that they have our only 2 students, they have to give us an explanation. Explanation? What explanation? Qingqing, don't mess around. Our small arms can't outrun their thighs. The alchemy division and the talisman division have many people, so it's like playing a game with us. Don't worry, I won't force it. This matter has to be done slowly. When the time comes, the money you owe me will be settled. A sinister smile appeared on Yun Chujia's face. Ding Wenru felt that the guy in front of her was most likely crazy. Even if she was lucky enough to get an explanation, she would at most get her territory back. What did that have to do with money? Moreover, even if the alchemy division and the talisman seal division went crazy and really gave money, it would still be the academy's money. What did it have to do with the two of them? Hei Xinjia's mood was much better now that she had the way to make money. It was not that she was greedy, but the glutton in the room was too wasteful. If she didn't think of a way to make money, wouldn't she be sitting on a mountain of nothing? In the afternoon, Ding Wenru went to the refining department to take a free lesson while Hei Xinjiu strolled to the alchemy department next door. This fellow strolled around the alchemy department and was even more certain of his conjecture. This alchemy department was obviously much bigger than the spiritual power department. It was really shameless to occupy the territory of the prehistoric department. This fellow narrowed his. Since the territory of the prehistoric department had been divided, there might be a lot of treasures that had been stolen by the other departments. It was really shameless. This fellow strolled around, and when he saw that it was about time, he strolled into the alchemy division's teaching hall. The students who were attending the class were new students who had just passed the middle school entrance examination. There were only a few dozen of them. When they saw Yun Chujio enter, they immediately exploded. Yan Qingcheng, your eyesight isn't good, is it? This is the alchemy division, what are you doing here? Get the hell out of here. We don't welcome trash like you here. Go back to your primeval faculty. That's right, I heard that you were chased out by Instructor Zheng from the spirit faculty this morning, why didn't you learn your lesson? Do you want to be chased out again? Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. A bunch of turtle doves that had taken over the magpie's nest, and they still dared to chase her out? However, this fellow thought of his small body and decided to temporarily give up on the idea of recovering the lost land. He would let these turtle doves run around for a few days first, and when the time was right, he would deal with them. However, it is also okay to collect some interest first. Chapter 57:45 These doves are really gullible. Hei Xinjiu blinked her eyes. You want me to get lost? TSK, you really have no shame at all. What right do you have to chase me away? If you want to chase me away, it should be the lecturer who will come in a while to chase me away. However, with my beautiful appearance, I believe the lecturer would not have the heart to chase me away. The freshmen of the alchemy faculty were all dumbfounded. They had seen thick-skinned people before, but this was the first time they had seen someone so thick-skinned. Yan Qingcheng, do you still have any shame? How dare you call yourself a beautiful woman with that unappealing face of yours? Besides, you're not a student of the alchemy faculty. When the lecturer arrives, he will definitely chase you away. If you still have any shame, then hurry up and leave. That's right, a person has to know his own limits. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you've bewitched Bei Yu with your evil ways. Get lost. Yun Chujia's black eyes rolled around. How about this, do you dare to make a bet with me? If the lecturer asks me to stay and listen to the lecture later, each of you will lose 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. If the lecturer kicks me out, I will lose 10,000 high-grade spirit stones to each of you. Do you dare? The freshmen looked at each other. This was a deal that would not make a profit, what was there to be afraid of? Even if the lecturer did not want to kick her out, if they were to make a fuss, the lecturer could only kick her out. Hence, one after another, they said, we don't dare. What a joke. Let's make a bet. Yan Qingcheng, you are indeed a sucker. Since you want to take the initiative to give us money, we naturally have no reason to object. If you don't admit your debt, we will definitely not let you off. Right, if you are willing to gamble, you must admit your loss. If you are going to cheat, HMPH. The smile on Yun Chujia's face became even brighter. These Jiao were really easy to fool. At this moment, a middle-aged man walked in from outside the door. Everyone immediately kept quiet, but their eyes were filled with pride and schadenfreude. Not only would they be able to chase Yan Qingqing out to vent their anger, but they would also be able to obtain 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. It was truly wonderful. My surname is Gu, and am the lecturer who teaches you the basics of medicinal herbs. Medicinal herbs are the foundation of pill refinement, and it's the most important thing. Lecturer Ji rambled on about the importance of the basics of medicinal herbs. Just as he was about to give an official lecture, someone raised his hand. What is your name, fellow student? What do you want? Lecturer Ji asked. Lecturer Gu, my name is Qin Feibai. I have something to report to you. Lecturer Ji looked at him in confusion. What is it? Lecturer Ji, this Yan Qingqing is a student of the Primeval Academy and not a student of our alchemy division. Therefore, she has no right to listen to the lecture here. Please expel her, Lecturer Ji. Qin Feibai glanced at Yun Chuzhou, he said proudly. The gazes of the other students were all focused on Yun Chuzhou. They were certain that Yun Chuzhou would be expelled, and their faces were filled with schadenfreude. Some of them were even thinking about how to spend the 10,000 spirit stones they earned. Lecturer Ji's gaze also landed on Yun Chuzhou, and he said indifferently, You are Yan Qingqing from the Primal Institution? Yun Chuzhou stood up and bowed respectfully, Yes, I am Yan Qingqing. The smug expressions on everyone's faces became even more pronounced. There was going to be a good show to watch. Lecturer Ji was definitely going to open his mouth and kick her out. Lecturer Ji sized up Yun Chuzhou and said indifferently, Sit down. The crowd that was stretching their necks and waiting for Yun Chuzhou to be kicked out. That was it. She wasn't kicked out. Chapter 57-46, They were his real students. Qin Feibai said anxiously, Lecturer Ji, she is not a student of the alchemy faculty. She doesn't have the right to stay here to listen to the lecture. Shouldn't you kick her out? Lecturer Ji's face immediately darkened. Are you accusing me? Qin Feibai's face immediately paled. No, I didn't mean that. It's just that Yan Qingqing is not a student of the alchemy faculty. Enough. There is no discrimination in teaching. Although she is a student of the Primeval Academy, she is also a student of the 10 Directions Academy. Coming here to listen shows that she is diligent and eager to learn. You should learn from her, Lecturer Ji said seriously. Lecturer Ji cursed in his heart. Damn it, he also wanted to kick her out. However, President Gu had ordered that the 2 students of the Primeval Academy could listen to any of the 6 faculties courses. Did he dare to kick them out? Qin Feibai and the other freshmen were immediately dumbfounded. Why was this different from what they had expected? Why didn't Lecturer Ji kick them out like Lecturer Zheng from the Spirit Energy branch? It was over. Losing face was one thing, but more importantly, they still had to lose to that Yan Qingqing for 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. If they had known earlier, they wouldn't have made the bet. It would have been too late for regrets. Lecturer Ji ignored the crowd and began his lecture. After a while, he said, Qin Feibai, answer me. I've just talked about the classification of herbs. Qin Feibai had been thinking about the bet and hadn't listened to the lecture seriously. He was instantly dumbfounded. He stammered for a long time but still couldn't answer. Lecturer Ji's face immediately darkened. He pointed at the boy next to him and said, Answer me. The boy was also trying to slip away. He could not give an answer even after a long while. Lecturer Ji's expression became even more unsightly. He randomly pointed at another person. Although that person answered a little, he did not give a complete answer. Lecturer Ji slapped the podium angrily and said, This was only the content from 15 minutes ago. How can you all not answer? Are your brains not working, or are you not paying attention to the lecture? You guys have really disappointed me. At this moment, Yun Chujio raised her claws weakly. Lecturer Ge, I know the answer, can I answer? Lecturer Ge glanced at her. Then you answer it. According to the ecological habits of the herbs, they are terrestrial herbs, aquatic herbs, epiphytic herbs, parasitic herbs, saprophytic herbs. According to the spiritual root attributes of the herbs, fire herbs, water herbs. To be honest, Lecturer Ge did not expect Yun Chujio to answer his question. After all, she had spent money to buy a flag to enter the upper house. However, he never expected Yun Chujio to answer his question so accurately. His impression of Yun Chujio was a little better. At least, this Yan Qingcheng's attitude towards the lecture was very upright. Lecturer Ge nodded. Very good. Sit down. Did you see that? Although Yan Qingcheng is here to listen, she is more serious than all of you. Shouldn't you feel ashamed? You actually asked me to kick Yan Qingcheng out previously. With your learning attitude, I think the ones who should be kicked out are all of you. Chen Feibai and the others looked like they had nothing to live for. What did they do wrong? Why did they have to suffer such treatment? Didn't this lecturer Ge know that there was a difference between being close and distant? They were his true students. The lesson that had tormented them was finally over. After lecturer Ge left, Yun Chujio directly blocked the door and stretched out her claws. If you are willing to gamble, you must admit defeat. Pay up. Chapter 57-47 were very friendly. Chen Feibai and the others were so angry that they gritted their teeth when they saw Yun Chujio's arrogant look. Chen Feibai's eyes flashed. Yan Qingcheng, what nonsense are you talking about? What do you mean by accepting your loss? Have we made a bet with you? Get out of the way quickly, or don't blame us for being impolite. Some of the students immediately understood Chen Feibai's meaning and immediately jeered, that's right, what bet? We don't even know about it. Yan Qingcheng, are you out of your mind? How dare you slander us? How shameless. Get out of the way, if you don't get out of the way, I'll let you walk out of here. Yun Chujio curled the corners of her lips and slowly took out a recording stone from her storage ring. The arrogant voices of Chen Feibai and the others could be heard from within. Everyone was immediately dumbfounded. This Yan Qingcheng actually made a sinister recording. This was really too despicable. Yun Chujio fiddled with the recording stone in her hand as she said indifferently, I'm a person. I always like to hold back when doing things. You want to play dirty with me? Hee hee. Take the money quickly. Otherwise, the entire upper house will know about the actions of you despicable people who go back on your words. Chen Feibai and the others were so angry that they were about to puke. However, they had no choice but to pay 10,000 upper-grade spirit stones each. After Yun Chujio finished collecting the spirit stones, she said with a smile, TSK, my fellow students from the alchemy division are really too polite. I'm very satisfied with this welcome gift. Let's meet again. Chen Feibai and the others were so angry that they almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This Yan Qingcheng was really too hateful. Looking at Yun Chujio's back, they all gritted their teeth. They had completely forgotten that they were the ones who provoked Yun Chujio first. Some people were like this. They were always looking for other problems, but they couldn't see their own mistakes. Yun Chujio hummed a little tune as she left the alchemy division and returned to the primal division. After a while, Ding Wenru also returned and said angrily, those bastards from the refining division really deserve a beating. I will let them know what it means to be a genius in the refining world in the future. Yun Chujio, Sister Ding, did they bully you? Ding Wenru gulped down a cup of tea before snorting coldly, HMPH. They just said that I don't have the qualifications to listen in and wanted to chase me away. However, when they saw that Instructor Chow didn't have any intention to chase me away, they finally stopped. A bunch of idiots who look down on others. Is it the same if you go to the alchemy division? Did they bully you? Yun Chujo bared her little white teeth. The students of the alchemy division are very friendly. Not only did they not bully me, they even gave me 10 high-grade spirit stones each as a welcome gift. Ding Wenru spat out the tea that she had just drunk. Qingcheng, what did you say? They gave you 10,000 high-grade spirit stones each? Ding Wenru felt that she might have misheard. Those students who had passed the middle school entrance examination were all too arrogant. Why would they give Qingcheng spirit stones? This was impossible. Yun Chujo immediately told her about the matter and then said, "Look, I didn't lie to you, right? Are the students of the alchemy faculty very friendly?" Ding Wenru. Friendly? I was obviously tricked by you, alright? Her admiration for Yun Chujo was like a torrential ocean. Look at her, she went out for a class and earned hundreds of thousands of high-grade spirit stones. As expected, she was a big, shiny leg. Right at this moment, a clamor came from outside the door, mixed with the screams of some women. Yun Chujo raised her eyebrows. It should be her gigolo. Having such a charming fiancé was really enviable. Chapter 57-48, The Red Claws That Were As Quiet as a Chicken. Yun Chujo opened the courtyard door and saw Di Baiming standing at the door. There were many girls gathered behind him and their faces were all red. However, when they saw Yun Chujo, they became united against a common enemy. Yun Chujo said in a sweet voice, "Big brother Bayu, you came to see me? Come, quickly come in. Let's go to my bedroom and have a good exchange of feelings." The girls immediately exploded. This Yan Qingcheng was too shameless. She wanted to drag Bayu into her bedroom in broad daylight, she definitely wanted to destroy him. She was too shameless. They silently shouted in their hearts, "Bayu, don't GOP." Unfortunately, they could only watch as Bayu nodded his head and followed the pervert into the courtyard. Ding Wenru walked out and shut the courtyard door with a bang. Then, she sat down on the steps of the door, looking as if she was a lone wolf. The girls immediately had a place to vent their anger. They pointed at Ding Wenru and scolded, "Ding Wenru, you're Yan Qingcheng's dog. Pooey. Shameless. Ding Wenru, you're in cahoots with Yan Qingcheng, you'll get your retribution. Ding Wenru, you ugly freak. You and Yan Qingcheng will be sent back to the lower house sooner or later, you two trash." Ding Wenru glanced at the few people who were scolding her and then recorded them in her black book. HMH, how dare they scold her? In the future, let Qingcheng teach them a lesson. In the courtyard, Di Baiming's expression was a little ugly. Just as he was about to turn around and shout at the girls to retreat, Yun Chujo stopped him, "Just treat them as dogs barking. There's only me and Ding Wenru in the primal institution. With their scolding, there's a little more vitality." Di Baiming could not help but laugh. In this world, there was no other optimistic girl like little Jiu. He reached out and rubbed Yun Chujia's hair lovingly. "Recently, Instructor Zheng has arranged a lot of things for me to complete after class. I'm afraid I don't have much time to look for you." Yun Chujiu curled her lips. She guessed that Xiao Yanxiao must have made use of Director Xiaofu to prevent her from being alone with the gigolo. To make a long story short, why did you come to the 10 Directions Academy? Yun Chujo asked the question that she had been wanting to ask. The 10 Directions Academy and the Divine Enlightenment Academy have a competition every year. There is a competition every 100 years, and in half a year, it happens to be the 100-year competition. During the 100-year competition, the two academies will work together to open an underground secret realm. Among them, there is something very important to me. After thinking about it, the only way is. That's why I entered the 10 Directions Academy. Di Baiming said with a serious expression. Yun Chujo was not surprised by this answer. She had some vague guesses. There must be something important for the pretty boy to endure those idiots in the Academy of 10 Directions. Otherwise, with his temper, he would have slapped away those flirtatious bitches who surrounded him for no reason. After chatting for a while, He Xinjiu said proudly, by the way, it'll show you De Hua's red claw. Although it's only a claw now, I think it will solidify sooner or later. Yun Chujiu released the red claw proudly. Di Baiming's eyes fell on the red claw. The red claw was as quiet as a chicken and very obedient. Di Baiming frowned. You told me before that it pushed you several times and even pulled your hair. Chapter 57-49 Zhang Ning will not let you down. Yun Chujiu immediately nodded her head with grievance. That's right, this dumbass bullied me in front of everyone. It's a 10,000-year-old single claw and it wants to turn me into a nun too. When the red claw heard the words, 10,000-year-old single claw, it was about to turn hostile. However, when it saw Di Baiming beside Yun Chujiu, it immediately continued to be as quiet as a chicken. Di Baiming's face immediately darkened. His eyes fell on the red claw like ice. The red claw could not help but tremble, like a fallen leaf in the wind, and the kind that was hit by frost. He Xinjiu was both relieved and jealous. Why? Why was her spiritual beast not afraid of her but the gigolo? The red claw was like this, and so was the Gowei Batsao. Why was it like this? Was it because men were more important than women? Di Baiming did not know that He Xinjia's thoughts had gone astray. He stared at the red claw and said indifferently, if there's a next time, there's no need for you to exist anymore. He Xinjiu saw that the red claw was trembling even more violently, so she immediately said, that's right. If you bully me again, I won't let you out. The red claw knew that Di Baiming and Yun Chujiu did not mean the same thing. Di Baiming said that there was no need for it to exist, and it was referring to its main body. The red claw trembled a few times, and in the end, it committed suicide. It was too scary outside, so it was better not to come out. Di Baiming frowned. Has Gowei Batsao been well behaved recently? It hasn't been acting like a demon again, has it? The strange grass in his dantian was shaking like a sieve. Guai Chao was very obedient. It hadn't done anything wrong. Fortunately, He Xinjiu didn't complain. She said with a smile, Gowei Batsao has been very obedient recently. It's much better than De Hua, that foodie. Gowei Batsao was extremely grateful. The little girl of He Xinjia's heart still had a conscience. He Xinjiu thought of Sha Mo and said smugly, Prince Charming, I have a new hobby recently. What hobby? I don't think there's anything new about raising spirit pets, so I raised a demon to play with. It's the kind of old demon that has lived for a long time. Di Baiming. While Di Baiming was stunned, Yun Chujiu told him about meeting Sha Mo in the Thunder Valley and said, my parents and Wu JP's heads are most likely demons. I'm afraid that PLL have to go to the demon continent in the future. It might be useful to raise this old demon. Even though Di Baiming had always been calm, he was still somewhat shocked after hearing Yun Chujiu's story. Putting aside the matter of the demon god's contract, how could the demon race be put into the spirit beast bag? And that Qiying from before was also put into the spirit beast bag by little Jiu. What exactly was going on? There were too many unsolved mysteries on little Jiu. He Xinjiu said with a grin, right, old demon and buttface both said that only the demon race can become the master of the demon god's contract. Do you think PM also from the demon race? Di Baiming laughed bitterly, I don't even know who I am. How do I know if you are a devil race or not? However, it doesn't matter if you are a devil race or a human race, as long as you are one. Yun Chujiu recalled some of the storybooks she had read before and asked with a smile, if I were a great devil that wreaked havoc on the common people, if I didn't die, everyone in the world would die. What would you do? Di Baiming looked into Yun Chujiu's eyes and said word by word, what does their life and death have to do with me? I only care about you. I would rather let the world down than let Vaughn down. Chapter 57-50, Did you not understand it as well? Yun Chujiu heard Di Baiming's words and her eyes instantly curved into a crescent moon. She was not surprised by Di Baiming's reply at all because if it were her, she would have given the same answer. She had never been a person who stuck to the secular world. It was the same in her previous life and this life as well. When he became a god, she would accompany him to transcend all living things. When he became a devil, she would accompany him to turn the world around. In a sense, the two of them were the same type of person. A certain Joe's personality was just a little off track. The two of them chatted for a while before Yunchujo called Ding Wenru in. The three of them had dinner together. Ding Wenru was trembling with fear during the dinner. This Yu could only watch from afar and not approach. As they got closer, the aura around them made it hard for them to breathe. Seeing that Yunchujo was not affected at all, she sighed in her heart. Pervert was indeed a pervert. No wonder he was able to take advantage of Yu, this good cabbage. As the upper house had a rule that no one was allowed to go out beyond the hour of the sun, Biming left after dinner. Ding Wenru let out a long breath. Qingcheng, the next time Yu comes, I won't get involved. When I was eating just now, there were a few times when I almost choked. Yunchujo could not help but laugh. Was it really that scary? However, when this fellow thought of the cowardly appearance of the Red Claws and Goei Batsao, he did not find it strange. At this moment, Ding Wenru said, "Oh right, Qingcheng, are you going to attend a lecture at the Talisman Seal Division tomorrow? There are times when Talisman Seal knowledge is needed to refine weapons, so tomorrow, I'll go with you to attend the lecture." Yunchujo narrowed her eyes. "Sister Ding, from what you said, you're good at both refining weapons and making talismans?" Ding Wenru grinned. "No matter what. I used to be a genius on the continent, but I usually kept a low profile." Yunchujo. Ding Wenru had a smug look on her face. Although she was not as abnormal as Qingcheng, she was still confident in some aspects, such as refining weapons and making talismans. Although her talisman-making talent wasn't as good as artifact-making, her talisman-making talent was still the best among the younger generation in the original continent. Although the original continent used talisman paper to make talismans, and the Divine Inspiration continent used specially made jade tokens to make talismans, there shouldn't be much of a difference in essence. Ding Wenru thought about how she could. After all, not just anyone could make a pervert look at her in a new light. With this thought in mind, Ding Wenru had a beautiful dream for the entire night. The next morning, Yunchujo and Ding Wenru went to the Talisman Seal Division next door. The new students of the Talisman Seal Division had probably heard about what happened to the new students of the Alchemy Division yesterday. Therefore, although they were all mocking Yunchujo and Ding Wenru, no one jumped into He Xinjia's trap again. During the class, Ding Wenru was a little dumbfounded. The freshmen from the middle school had learned the basic knowledge of the jade talisman in the middle school. Therefore, the lecturer, Sima, skipped the basic knowledge and directly explained the drawing method of the wild flame jade talisman. Ding Wenru could only memorize what the lecturer said and think of a solution when she went back. She glanced at Yunchujo who was beside her and saw that she seemed to be asleep with her eyes closed. She thought to herself, looks like this pervert Qingcheng didn't understand as well. Her foundation is probably even worse than mine. After class, He Xinjiu yawned and stretched. She said lazily, let's go out for a walk and then go to the canteen for lunch. Ding Wenru lowered her voice and said, Qingcheng, did you not understand? Yunchujo looked at her indifferently and said, guess. Chapter 57-51, What's your name? Ding Wenru heard Yunchujo say this and thought that Qingcheng must be embarrassed to admit that she didn't understand. However, this was also normal. If she didn't understand, she naturally wouldn't understand. Ding Wenru comforted, it's okay if you don't understand. I don't understand either. We haven't learned the basics of jade talisman seals, so naturally, we can't understand. Well, think of something when we go back. Yunchujo nodded with a faint smile, okay. Ding Wenru felt that something was wrong, but she didn't know what it was. At this time, Yunchujo had already walked out, and Ding Wenru quickly followed. Yunchujo walked around the talisman seal branch, and finally arrived near the wall that was connected to the prehistoric branch. There was a large number of houses near the wall. Among them, there were also large buildings similar to the Hall of Preaching. These buildings were obviously different from the other buildings in the Talisman Division. Ding Wenru said indignantly, "Qingcheng, these buildings must have belonged to the Primal Division. The Talisman Division is really shameless." Yun Chujia's eyes flashed. She had to return the favor. She was not in a hurry. "Let's go to the canteen." Ding Wenru was also a foodie. Her face immediately lit up with joy. She wished that she could grow a pair of wings and fly to the canteen immediately. The two of them did not return to the prehistoric branch after having lunch in the canteen. Yun Chujio went to the alchemy branch to freeload, while Ding Wenru went to the armament branch to freeload. The class that Yun Chujio freeloaded from today was not for the new students, but for the older students. Xiao Lianxiao was also one of them. Xiao Lianxiao saw Yun Chujio and her eyes immediately flashed with ruthlessness. Jia Qiuyun, who was beside her, curled her lips. This Yan Qingcheng really doesn't have any self-awareness. It's one thing for her to be freeloading from the new students, but she actually came to listen to our alchemy class. Does she understand? Tao Yan snorted. I think she probably came here on purpose to annoy Lian Xiao. Otherwise, why would she come here all of a sudden to freeloading from the class? She's really shameless. Bei Yu is also blind. He actually chose her over Lian Xiao. Shut up. Xiao Lianxiao angrily rebuked. Tao Yan said embarrassedly, Lian Xiao, I'm also fighting for you. Whether it's your appearance, family background, or cultivation, you are 100 times stronger than that Yan Oingcheng. Bei Yu must have also been bewitched by this Yan Qingcheng. He will wake up sooner or later. Xiao Lianqiu's expression was very ugly. She stared at Yun Chujio like a poisonous snake. If she was not. However, it did not matter. It was the easiest thing to deal with such trash. She did not need to do it herself. She just needed to kill someone else. She thought of the lecturer who was going to teach them today and her face showed a proud expression. She did not need to do anything. Naturally, someone would want her to die. Yun Chujio naturally noticed Xiao Lianxiao. She narrowed her eyes and hopped around. She would kill you sooner or later. Yun Chujio found a seat and sat down. A moment later, a lecturer walked in. The lecturer's gaze fell on Yun Chujio and he couldn't help but be stunned. This student, I've never seen you before. What's your name? The lecturer asked. Yun Chujio stood up and bowed. I'm Yan Qingcheng from the prehistoric branch. I'm here to listen in. The lecturer's pupils constricted and he revealed an amiable smile. You're indeed diligent and eager to learn. Sit down. If you have any questions in the future, feel free to ask me. Yun Chujio thanked him and sat down again. Chapter 57-52 was no big deal when the students heard the lecturer's words, they were all indignant. They felt that lecturer Wang's attitude towards Yan Qingcheng was too good, even better than his attitude towards them. What right did he have? Xiao Lianxiao revealed a cold smile. Yan Qingcheng was going to be in trouble very soon. She just needed to wait patiently. Lecturer Wang and Lecturer Lu, who wanted to poison Yun Chujio previously, were cousins. The two of them had always been on good terms. Back then, he had brought his students out for training, but when he returned, he found out that Instructor Lu had gone mad. Even though he had looked for many people to treat him, they all shook their heads and sighed, saying that there was no possibility of a cure. As for the cause of the illness, many people felt that it was caused by excessive stimulation. In addition to Xiao Lianxiao adding fuel to the fire, Instructor Wang blamed this matter on Yun Chujio. The class was uneventful. Instructor Wang even asked Yun Chujio if she could understand it midway. He was very kind and patient. Yun Chujio's face was full of gratitude, but her heart was filled with vigilance. After the class, Yun Chujio returned to the prehistoric branch. After a while, Ding Wenru also came back eagerly. She took out a pen and paper and said with some self-satisfaction, "Qingcheng, did you remember the content of today's talisman seal class?" "Forget it, you've been sleeping all this time, so you definitely didn't pay attention to the lecture. I've memorized about 60 to 70% of it. I'll use a piece of paper to draw it now. Let's study it." As she spoke, Ding Wenru began to draw. After a while, she finished drawing the content that she had memorized. "Qingcheng, I'm not bragging. Although I'm best at refining artifacts, my talisman seal talent is also very good. If it weren't for the fact that I don't have the foundation of jade talisman seals, I could at least draw 80% of it. In the past, it was you who protected me. When I've learned how to refine artifacts and talisman seals, I'll protect you." Yun Chujiu glanced at her indifferently. She didn't say anything and just let her talk. But Face, who was in the spirit beast bag, curled his lips and said to the dumb cub, "CC, guess if Ding Wenru knows that the little fairy's talisman seal talent is 100 times stronger than hers, will she vomit blood?" Before the dumb cubs could say anything, Sha Mo snorted coldly and said, "The mighty Cheong Chi has now become a sycophantic dog. What a disgrace. I gave you Face, didn't I? I didn't beat you up today. Are you itching for a beating? Let's attack him together and beat him up." Yun Chujiu used her spiritual sense to scan the spirit beast pouch and then looked at the smug Ding Wenru. She decided to show her kindness and let Ding Wenru revel in herself for a few days. After all, everyone had the right to be proud. At this moment, President Gu was in the study dealing with official business when the voice transmission talisman suddenly trembled. After President Gu used his spiritual sense to probe, he couldn't help but be stunned, and then cold sweat broke out on his forehead. As he hurried to the back of the mountain, he muttered in his heart, could it be that those two knew that the Primeval Academy had accepted 2 new students? Otherwise, why did they say that they would go into closed-door cultivation, but let him go over? President Gu felt a little guilty when he thought of the 2 new students that the prehistoric branch had accepted. If the 2 of them knew that the prehistoric branch had accepted 2 good-for-nothings, wouldn't they scold him to death? President Gu went to the back of the mountain in fear and trepidation and saw that the 2 old men who had agreed to enter closed-door cultivation were waiting for him. "Greetings, seniors." President Gu pretended to be calm and bowed to greet them. "Well, did anything happen in the academy in the past 2 days?" the short elder asked. President Gu wiped the cold sweat off his head and didn't know where to start. He mumbled, "It's not a big deal." He silently added in his heart that he had taken in 2 useless students for them. Chapter 57-53, Little Guzi. The short old man frowned slightly. "But what's the matter?" The tall old man glared at President Gu and pursed his lips. "Little Guzi, you're also a dignified president. Can you stop acting like a bullied little wife? If you don't know, you'll think that we 2 old men are bullying you." President Gus' heart was filled with bitterness. "You guys were bullying people in the first place, all right?" He had a name and a name. Who the hell was Little Guzi? However, their seniority was higher than his, and their cultivation was higher than his. What could he do? He could only pretend to be a quail. President Gu gritted his teeth and was ready to tell the truth. Actually. Okay, let's not talk about trivial matters. We called you here because we suddenly remembered something. In half a year, the 100-year grand competition will be held. We lost to the Divine Enlightenment Academy in the last 100-year grand competition, which made Chichen very proud. This time, we must win no matter what. You should start selecting the candidates to participate in the 100-year grand competition now. After the stage, throw the monkeys into the 6 Harmonies Waterside Pavilion. If there are no accidents, let the top 50 take part in the 100-year grand competition. The tall old man said impatiently. President Gu was already used to the tall old man's way of doing things, so he didn't dare to say anything more. He quickly nodded and agreed. Seeing that he agreed, the tall old man waved his hand. Alright, we're going into seclusion. If there's nothing important, don't come and disturb our cultivation. Let's go back. President Gu felt as if he had been granted amnesty. After bowing, he turned around and left. Sigh. If it wasn't for the fact that the primal region hasn't been able to recruit any good seedlings, how would we need those monkeys from the other branches? What a pity. The tall old man said with a sigh. The short old man echoed, that's right. There are many students with high talent, but there are too few students who fit our primal region. I'm afraid that the primal region will end in our hands. Hearing that, President Gu staggered and almost fell into the ravine. End? That doesn't exist. You already have students now. It's just that, you're a little useless. President Gu considered it over and over again, but he still gave up on the idea of telling the truth. Firstly, he was afraid of being scolded. Secondly, he felt that Yun Chuzhou and Ding Wenru would probably be sent back to the lower house very soon, so he might as well not say it. After President Gu flew back to his study room, he felt that it was necessary to understand the study situation of the only two students of the prehistoric branch. Thus, he took out his identity jade token and asked Manager Yang, how have Yan Qingcheng and Ding Wenru performed these 2 days? Have they really gone to the other branches to listen in? A moment later, Manager Yang replied, their performance is not bad. They will go to the other branches to listen in every day. However, Yan Qingcheng won a bet yesterday that the freshmen of the alchemy branch would get 10,000 high-grade spirit stones each. President Gu. Was it so easy to earn money now? She easily earned hundreds of thousands of high-grade spirit stones. No wonder Yan Qingcheng was willing to spend money to buy a flag. It turned out that it was so easy for her to get money. However, were the freshmen of the alchemy branch idiots? Did they just jump into the pit that they had dug so easily? Wouldn't it be interesting if this mischievous Yan Qingcheng faced those two from the back of the mountain? President Gus thought only flashed through his mind. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. He was really thinking too much. That Yan Qingcheng's cultivation was low and she would be sent back to the lower house very soon. She wouldn't have the chance to meet those two at all. Chapter 57-54, No spiritual pet is willing to acknowledge me as its master. Achoo. Achoo. Hey Shinjo, who was talking to a certain voice transmission talisman, sneezed twice and mumbled, damn it, who is scolding me? This guy was quite satisfied with the current situation. He could listen to the alchemy and talisman refining, and he could also see the gigolo. It was simply wonderful. After breakfast the next day, this guy decided to go to the beast taming institution for a walk. Although she felt that there was no method more effective than her bluffing, but if she could learn some useful things, it would also be good. B0X. Calm. Moreover, after listening to a few classes, if there was anything in the future, she could also have some reasonable excuses. The beast taming department was relatively far from the prehistoric department. Yun Chuzhou walked for less than an hour before she arrived at the beast taming department. The biggest difference between the Beast Master faculty and the other faculties was that in the Beast Master faculty, spirit beasts could be released and spirit beasts that followed their masters could be seen everywhere. The students of the Beast Master faculty basically had many spirit beasts. Therefore, when Yun Chuzhou entered, she saw many students followed by several spirit beasts. Coincidentally, they were the new students who had entered the faculty this time. Those students also saw Yun Chuzhou, and immediately all kinds of sarcasm and ridicule came to their faces. TSK, did you see that? That trash Yan Qingcheng actually came to our beast taming department. What is she doing here? Could it be that she wants to audit the courses of our beast taming department? I guess so. She is really shameless, thinking that everyone can learn beast taming techniques. A trash like her wants to learn beast taming techniques. What a joke. She will have a hard time. We are having a practical class today, and the demonic beasts in the beast enclosure can scare her half to death. Especially the demonic beasts in the dome hut, they were even more unruly and unruly. The older students would be terrified when they saw them, and this Yan Qingqing would definitely be so scared that she would faint. Yun Chuzhou narrowed her eyes and ignored the ridicule of the new students. She followed them to the beast enclosure. There was a barrier outside the monster enclosure, and many monsters were kept inside. A square-faced instructor was already waiting outside the enclosure. After seeing everyone, he said, "This is your first time entering the monster enclosure, so I must emphasize some things to pay attention to. First, after entering the enclosure, no one can leave the team without permission. Otherwise, they will bear the consequences. Secondly, without permission, no one is allowed to provoke the demon beasts, especially the demon beasts in the dome." Hearing this, everyone was both excited and nervous. According to Instructor Zhu's words, they would visit the dome today. They heard that the demon beasts in the dome were all captured from the Six Harmonies Waterside Pavilion. These demon beasts were abnormally fierce. If one of them was successfully controlled, it would be enough to brag in the demon beast branch for a long time. After Instructor Zhu finished talking about the things to take note of, he glanced at the spiritual pets beside everyone. He saw Yun Chuzhou standing alone at the side and frowned. "This student, where is your spiritual pet?" Yun Chuzhou sighed. "Instructor Zhu, I am Yan Qingqing from the prehistoric branch. My cultivation is low and my aptitude is not good, so no spiritual pets are willing to acknowledge me as their master." Inside the spiritual beast bag, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cute and stupid. "Master, is it really good for you to lie like this? You don't have a spiritual pet? Then what are we? Are we ghosts? You are already so awesome that you want to raise the demon race to play, so is it appropriate for you to still pretend to be a little trash here?" The new students of the Beast Master Institution sneered one after another. This Yan Qingqing finally had some self-awareness. Chapter 57-55 Demon Beasts in the Dome. Instructor Zhu looked at Yun Chuzhou somewhat speechlessly. Aptitude is only one aspect. The day after tomorrow's hard work is also very important. As long as you diligently cultivate, you will definitely gain something. Instructor Zhu's attitude was quite good, and his words were also quite sincere. Yun Chuzhou nodded gratefully. "Instructor Zhu, I understand. I will definitely cultivate well in the future and not disappoint your expectations of me. I am determined to become the most outstanding audit student in the Beast Master faculty." Instructor Zhu. "You are the only audit student in total, okay? You are naturally the most outstanding. B0X. Calm. Instructor Zhu opened the enchantment of the monster enclosure and led everyone into the monster enclosure. The students cried out in surprise. This was also their first time entering the monster enclosure. They were in a long corridor separated by an enchantment. Next to it was a grassland. In the distance, they could see the ocean, desert, and other scenes. Presumably, these scenes were to better simulate the original living environment of the demon beasts. After Instructor Zhu and his group entered, they saw their demon beasts and let out unhappy roars. Some even ran to the vicinity of the long corridor to attack the barrier. However, their attacks were like ants trying to shake a tree. They did not damage the barrier at all. When the students saw those demon beasts, they were quite excited. They wished they could immediately show their skills and try to control them. Instructor Zhu explained the characteristics and weaknesses of the demon beasts he saw. His main purpose today was to bring the new students in for a visit. Therefore, the number of demon beasts he explained wasn't much. Even so, Yun Chuzhou listened with great interest. This guy felt that his decision to come over to the beast taming class was the right one. At least Instructor Zhu was more reliable and the content was very practical. After passing through the ocean scene, a barrier that was different from the other scenes appeared in front of the long corridor. This barrier was obviously much stronger than the other places. There was even a dense net covering the inside of the barrier, and there were more than a dozen demon beasts either standing or lying inside. A few freshmen who were slightly less courageous immediately cried out in surprise, "Heavens, is this the dome? Are these the demon beasts captured on the Six Harmonies waterside pavilion? This is too terrifying." Although the demonic beasts in the dome could be called by their names, they emitted a thick and fierce aura. Even though they were separated by a net and a barrier, Instructor Zhu pointed at the demonic beasts in the dome and said, "These demonic beasts have a very thick and fierce aura. Before you are fully confident, do not try to control them." The reason why Instructor Zhu said so was that the demonic beast enclosure was open to students on specific days, so they could practice their beast controlling skills. After the students selected the demonic beasts, the instructor in the demonic beast enclosure would send the demonic beasts to a specific beast controlling room for the students to practice. Instructor Zhu continued, "It'll give you 15 minutes to observe these demonic beasts. Don't get too close." The new students immediately pointed at the demonic beasts in the hut and discussed animatedly, while Yun Chujio was pushed to the back. She had even seen beasts like Hun Dun and Xiong Qi, so she was naturally not interested in these demonic beasts. Moreover, this guy was hungry. In her eyes, those demonic beasts instantly turned into boiled pork, braised pork knuckles, braised pork ribs. At the same time, the students who were observing those demonic beasts were stunned to find that those demonic beasts that were originally emitting a ferocious aura suddenly began to tremble. One of them even fainted with a choking sound. Chapter 57-56 was because he was hungry, right? The confused crowd. What happened to being very fierce? What happened to being very dangerous? What happened to being unruly? What the hell were these shivering little wretches? Instructor Zhu was also at a loss and puzzled. What was going on with these demonic beasts? How did they suddenly become like this? They seemed to have received a huge shock. Regardless of whether it was him or these students, they would not pose any threat to these demonic beasts. What were they afraid of? Hei Xinjiu was also at a loss. She was only thinking about braised pork ribs. Why were these demonic beasts so afraid? B0X. Calm. This fellow still had some self-awareness. He knew that it was definitely not because of the delicacies that she had just thought of. Then, the question was, why did these demonic beasts suddenly have a seizure? After all, if she had the ability, she would not need to be so arrogant when she encountered demonic beasts. She could just think of all kinds of delicacies directly. However, this fellow was extremely hungry now and did not have the mood to think too much. She secretly took out a meat bun and began to eat it. No matter what, it was more important to fill her stomach first. Everyone's attention was on the demonic beasts in the dome. At first, no one noticed her, but the fragrance of the meat bun spread out and some students saw it. Instructor Zhu, Yan Qingqing actually ate during class. Instructor Zhu was originally a little irritated because of the abnormal behavior of these demonic beasts, so she immediately said unhappily, "Yan Qingqing, why did you violate the classroom rules?" Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. "Instructor Zhu, I saw that those demonic beasts were a little dispirited, so I ate some meat buns to stimulate them." Instructor Zhu. Could he find an excuse to be more attentive? To stimulate the demonic beasts. I've never heard of any demonic beasts that like to eat meat buns. The most annoying thing was that when he was talking to Yan Qingqing, she was still stuffing meat buns into her mouth, as if she was the reincarnation of a starving ghost. Instructor Zhu's face darkened. He pointed at the demonic beasts in the dome and said, "Nonsense. How could the meat buns stimulate these demonic beasts?" Instructor Zhu's words came to an abrupt end because he was stunned to find that the demonic beasts were really more energetic. Even the unconscious demonic beast had woken up. Yun Chujie's eyes also widened. Oh my, she was just casually saying it, but it really worked. So these demonic beasts were hungry. Instructor Zhu, although these demonic beasts are prisoners, we can't torture them. Look at how hungry they are, it's so pitiful. Hei Shinjo said hypocritically, she had completely forgotten that she wanted to turn these demonic beasts into plates of delicious food just now. Instructor Zhu. I will investigate this matter thoroughly. Now, follow me and leave this place. The students could only follow Instructor Zhu out of the dome hut with dumbfounded expressions. On the way back, Hei Shinjo deliberately looked at those ordinary demonic beasts and imagined turning them into bowls of braised meat. However, there was nothing abnormal about those demonic beasts. Therefore, she was even more certain that the abnormality of the demonic beasts in the dome had nothing to do with her. This fellow ate all the way and successfully added another name to everyone's impression of her good-for-nothing. After Yun Chujo returned to the primeval institution, she immediately let out her red claws to feed the spiritual stones. Ding Wenru felt her heart ache as she watched from the side. It was realv expensive to raise such a glutton. She suddenly frowned. Oh right, Qingcheng, I heard a piece of news in the armament division today. Previously, Bei Yu and the others had cancelled their training due to the beast tide. It's said that they will be going out to train again in 3 days. Chapter 57-57, Going to Yun Chujo raised her eyebrows. Going for experiential learning again? Who are the people going? It's said that each branch has a quota. The spiritual power branch is Beiyu, the alchemy branch is Shao Yanxiao, the array branch is Baiyuechen, the beast master branch is Jiang Shuangli, the artifact refining branch is Nangong Shi, and the talisman branch is Ji Lingfeng. TSK, this time, Lingfeng stepped on the moon, and all the 4 unrivaled young masters in the world were gathered. It was said that Baiyuechen was a new student who had just entered from the middle school, so he was not the representative of the array division. No one knew what methods he had used, but he was the one who had been replaced. Qingcheng, that Shao Yanxiao is going too. She won't have any designs on the Northern Imperial Army, right? Ding Wenru said with a gossipy expression. B0X. Calm Yun Chujo narrowed her eyes. It's fine, because I want to go too. With me around, that little bitch Shao Yanxiao can only hope for nothing. Ding Wenru felt that Yun Chujo was talking nonsense. Qingcheng, these people are all carefully selected. Even if you want to go, the academy will not agree. Yun Chujo bared her little white teeth. I have my own ways. 3 days later, at the entrance of the upper academy, Shao Yanxiao, who was meticulously dressed, was enjoying the treatment of being adored by the stars. Ji Lingfeng's attentiveness was needless to say. Jiang Shuangli from the Beast Master Division also had a good impression of Shao Yanxiao. After all, Shao Lianqiu's family background, appearance, and cultivation were all outstanding. As for Baiyuechen, who had just passed the middle school entrance exam to the upper school, he also came forward to show his solicitude. Nangong Shi from the Weapon Refining Division, on the other hand, was not interested in Shao Yanxiao. He stood at the side with an indifferent expression. He had always been quiet and taciturn, so everyone did not take it to heart. After Ji Lingfeng showed his solicitude, he said, Beiyu was late last time, but this time he's actually late again. This is really too much. Jiang Shuangli echoed, that's right, does he really think he's some amazing person? He's always so arrogant. If you ask me, there are plenty of people who are more outstanding than him in the spirit faculty, so I shouldn't let him. Baiyuechen curled his lips. I think he's deliberately putting on an aloof appearance, but in reality, he's full of schemes to attract everyone's attention. Just like now, he's obviously late on purpose to make us all wait for him. Baiyuechen was very dissatisfied with Beiyu. The reason was very simple. He had initially shone during the entrance examination, but who would have thought that the limelight would be snatched away by Beiyu, who had directly entered the upper house. One could imagine the frustration in his heart. Shao Yanxiao snorted coldly. Isn't it not time to gather yet? Why are you all in such a hurry? Ji Lingfeng and the others immediately choked, their dissatisfaction towards Beiyu growing. At this moment, Director Xiaofu, who was leading the team, walked over. After Xiao Yanxiao and the others bowed, Director Xiaofu swept his gaze over them. Seeing that Bei Yu had not arrived yet, he could not help but frown. To be honest, if Xiao Yanxiao had not taken a liking to Bei Yu, he would not have liked Bei Yu very much. Putting aside the reason for Yan Qingcheng, he felt that Bei Yu was really hard to control. Sometimes, in front of Bei Yu, he always felt like he was being suppressed. This kind of feeling made him very unhappy. However, Xiao Yanxiao liked him, so he could only suppress his displeasure and try his best to set them up. Bei Yu is here. Isn't that trash Yan Qingcheng by his side? This Yan Qingcheng is really thick-skinned. Is she reluctantly sending them off? Bai Yuechen pointed at the two people in the distance and said. Xiao Liangqiu's expression immediately darkened, but she soon revealed a smug look. It was good that Yan Qingcheng had come. It was just enough to stimulate her. After all, she could only watch as she and Bei Yu went out to train, while she, this little trash, could only stay in the academy. When they met again, Bei Yu would already be with her. At that time, Yan Qingcheng would definitely be so angry that she would die. At the thought of Yan Qingcheng being so angry that she would vomit blood, Xiao Liangqiu's expression became even more smug. Chapter 57-58. A moment later, Yun Chujiu and Di Baiming walked to the front of the crowd. Xiao Yanxiao glanced at Yun Chujiu and said proudly, Yan Qingcheng, you can send them here. After all, you can't leave the academy. Don't worry, I will take good care of Bei Yu. Yun Chujiu glanced at her and said with a smile, normally, I won't trouble others with what I can do, so it's better for me to take care of Bei Yu myself. That's not right. After all, PM a little trash. Brother Bei Yu can't bear to see me suffer, so it's always Brother Bei Yu who takes care of me. Xiao Yanxiao was stunned at first, then she sneered, Yan Qingcheng, is there something wrong with your brain? Don't tell me you want to train with us. B0X. Calm, we are the elites carefully selected by the various branches. You're not from the 6 branches, what right do you have to go? Hurry up and get lost. Yun Chujiu blinked her eyes, I am the representative of the primeval branch. It's really funny, can the primeval branch be compared to our 6 branches? Do you think you can find an excuse to go with us to train? How naive. Xiao Yanxiao said disdainfully. Yun Chujiu said unhurriedly, you are wrong to say that, why can't the primeval branch be compared to the 6 branches? Although the number of people in the prehistoric branch was small, it was still a proper branch. Don't you agree, Director Xiaofu? Director Xiaofu said with a gloomy face, the training this time doesn't include the prehistoric branch. You should leave quickly, or else you will be punished according to the rules of the branch. Yun Chujiu smiled faintly, Director Xiaofu, PM really sorry. I went to ask President Gu yesterday. He said that he would treat everyone equally. No matter what kind of activities in the future, our prehistoric branch can participate. If you don't believe me, you can ask President Gu. Vice President Xiao used his identity jade token to ask President Gu. His expression became more and more unsightly. He coldly said, since you insist on participating in the experiential learning, if anything happens, I will not be responsible. Vice President Xiao, you can rest assured about this. Big Brother Bei Yu will protect me. He Xinjiu held Di Baiming's arm and said happily. Xiao Yanxiao almost died from anger. She gritted her teeth. It was not bad to let Yan Qingcheng go with them. When the time came, she would find an opportunity to kill her. After everyone boarded the ship, He Xinjiu held Di Baiming's arm and said sweetly, Big Brother Bei Yu, let's go. Let's go fishing on the deck. Xiao Yanxiao quickly said, the sun is very hot outside. Why don't we play chess and drink tea in the cabin? Even if it's training, it's better than going fishing. After Xiao Yanxiao finished speaking, she looked at Bei Yu with Unfortunately, Bei Yu did not even look at her, let alone respond to her. He directly left the cabin with Yun Chujiu. Xiao Lianxiao was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Ji Lingfeng fawned over her and said, "Junior sister Lianxiao, let's play chess. I heard that your chess skills are extraordinary. It's a good opportunity to experience it." Although Xiao Lianxiao was unwilling, she still agreed. The hatred in her heart towards Yun Chujiu grew even stronger. On the deck, He Xinjiu was nestled in Di Baiming's arms, fishing. The two of them did not speak, but their hearts were filled with sweetness. This kind of time was too rare for the two of them. Although they could not talk about some secret matters, being able to cuddle together was enough to satisfy them. A moment later, a fish took the bait. Yun Chujiu immediately shouted excitedly, "Haha! A fish has taken the bait. It's time to grill the fish." The two immediately grilled the fish on the deck, talking and laughing as they ate. Chapter 57-59 Bloodthirsty Insect Valley. Inside the cabin, Xiao Lianxiao heard Yun Chujiu's silver bell-like laughter and angrily crushed the chess pieces in her hands into fine powder. Ji Lingfeng said with a hint of ridicule, "Junior sister Lianxiao, I think Bei Yu really likes that Yan Qingcheng. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so obedient to her. He really looks for whoever he wants. One pretends to be cold and the other is trash. They're a perfect match." Xiao Lianxiao immediately stood up and said impatiently, "I'm not going down. I'm going to the deck to get some fresh air." Ji Lingfeng's eyes flashed as he followed her out. B0X. Calm Bai Yuechen and Jiang Shuangli looked at each other and followed her out. On the other hand, Nan Gongshi from the refining department was still cultivating in a corner of the cabin, as if he did not hear the conversation between Xiao Lianao and the others. Xiao Lianxiao had just stepped out of the cabin when she smelled the aroma of grilled fish. What she saw made her even more jealous. She saw that Bei Yu was carefully helping Yan Qingqing pick out the fish bones and placing the fish meat on the plate in front of Yun Chujiu. That shameless Yan Qingqing actually said slyly, "Brother Bei Yu, my hand hurts. Can you feed me?" Bei Yu revealed a loving smile when he heard that. He actually fed Yan Qingqing the fish meat. Xiao Lianqiu's heart was filled with unwillingness and anger. On what basis? On what basis could Bei Yu not see how good she was? On what basis did he treat this trash, Yan Qingqing, so well? Xiao Lianxiao finally managed to suppress the urge to rush forward and kill Yun Chujiu. It didn't matter. When they reached the training location, she had 100 ways to kill Yan Qingqing. In the next few days, Yun Chujiu showed off her love and dog food along the way, making Xiao Lianxiao so angry that she almost vomited blood. Ji Lingfeng, Bai Yuechen, and Jiang Shuangli were trying to please Xiao Lianxiao. Only Nan Gongshi was focused on his cultivation. Director Xiaofu also watched coldly and didn't interfere. The location for everyone's training was the Bloodthirsty Insect Valley. As the name implied, there were many demonic insects in the Bloodthirsty Insect Valley. Their goal was not to hunt demonic insects, but to gather spiritual herbs and seeds. There were many unique spiritual herbs in the Bloodthirsty Insect Valley. Collecting these spiritual herbs and seeds could enrich the myriad herb garden of the Alchemy Division. The reason why the team included the students of the major divisions was to train their division of labor and cooperation. On this day, the flying spiritual device landed at the entrance of the Bloodthirsty Insect Valley. Director Xiaofu said seriously, "There are many dem. Some of them are very dangerous. Therefore, no one is allowed to act on their own, or they will bear the consequences. Alright, let's enter the valley now." As soon as they entered the Bloodthirsty Insect Valley, everyone was amazed by the spiritual herbs and plants everywhere. No wonder the academy asked them to come here to collect herbs and seeds. The vegetation here was indeed very rich. However, the herbs at the entrance of the Insect Valley were very ordinary. They were not the target of their collection. Everyone continued to enter. Xiao Lianxiao looked at Yun Chujiu who was jumping up and down while holding Di Baiming's arm. She tightened her hands under her sleeves and walked forward to hand over a few porcelain bottles. Yan Qingcheng, here are your pills. Yun Chujiu took the few porcelain bottles. There were labels on them. They were nothing more than pills to stop bleeding, replenish spiritual energy, and detoxify. He Xinjiu said with a face full of shame, thank you so much, Senior Xiao. I didn't expect Senior Xiao to be so magnanimous and forget about the past. PM so ashamed. Brother Beiyu is already mine. I think Jilin Feng, Bai Yuechen, and Jiang Shuangli are not bad either. It's good that you choose one of them. Don't have any ideas about my brother Beiyu in the future. Chapter 57-60 Giant Thorn and Xiao Yanxiao gritted her teeth and said against her will, what you said makes sense. Let bygones be bygones. Yun Chujiu immediately looked at Ji Lingfeng and the other two with a smile. Her scrutinizing gaze was as if she was buying pork at a market. Although the three of you are not as good-looking as my big brother Beiyu, and although you don't have as outstanding a temperament as my big brother Beiyu, and although you are not as talented as my big brother Beiyu, you are still not bad. You are perfect for Senior Xiao. After all, Senior Xiao is much worse than me. She's not as pretty or smart as me, and she's not as likable as me. Xiao Yanxiao and the others were so angry that their noses almost went crooked. B0x. Calm, she was clearly praising herself and Beiyu, and belittling them. Beiyu was fine, but this Yan Qingcheng actually had the face to say that she was prettier than Xiao Yanxiao. Was she blind? Xiao Lianqiu's face was gloomy, and she was determined. Yan Qingcheng, you won't be able to smile very soon. The few bottles of pills that she gave Yun Chujiu, the pills that could stop bleeding and replenish spiritual power, were not a problem. However, the pills that could detoxify the poison had been tampered with by her. Not only would it not detoxify the poison, but it would also accelerate the spread of the poison. Many demonic insects in the bloodthirsty insect valley were highly toxic. Yan Qingcheng, this trash, would definitely be poisoned. When the time came, she would definitely consume the detoxification pills. Moreover, the demonic insects in the bloodthirsty insect valley were everywhere. They might directly bite her to death. Xiao Yanxiao thought that Yun Chujiu would die very soon, so she felt a little better after being angered by Yun Chujiu to the point that she wanted to vomit blood. At this moment, Jiang Shuangli said somewhat ostentatiously, there are a lot of double-leaf golden needle grass here. There will definitely be accompanying demonic insects, giant thorn ants. Giant thorn ants can release corrosive venom, so everyone should be careful. However, everyone doesn't have to worry too much. Giant thorn ants have a fatal weakness, which is that they don't have eyes. They can only rely on the shaking of the ground to sense the position of their prey. As long as we are careful, we can safely pass through. Jiang Shuangli was a student of the Beast Master School, so he was very familiar with the habits of all kinds of demonic beasts. Therefore, although he was deliberately showing off, everyone didn't have any antipathy. Xiao Lianqiu's eyes flashed. Yan Qingcheng's cultivation was much lower than theirs, and her movement technique must be very poor. She might be sprayed by the venom of the giant thorn ants. After a moment, as expected, many giant thorn ants appeared. Those giant thorn ants felt the weak tremble of the ground and began to spray venom. Everyone hurriedly dodged and nimbly moved around. Oh my god! This is too scary. What the hell is this thing? Io, it was so close to hitting me. It was so close, so close. My goodness, my legs are a little weak, I can't run anymore. It's over, PM going to feed the ants. Xiao Yanxiao listened to Yun Chujiu's wails and was secretly pleased. She could not wait for the giant ants to spray venom on Yun Chujiu's body in the next moment. However, every time Yun Chujiu narrowly avoided the venom, she did not get hit. Xiao Yanxiao gritted her teeth. This bitch's luck was not bad. Io, brother Beiyu, I can't take it anymore. I'm so scared that my legs are weak. Carry me. He Xinjiu said slyly. Di Baiming did not say anything. He immediately bent down and carried Yun Chuzhou on his back. Xiao Liangqiu's eyes were about to spit fire. She gritted her teeth and said, Beiyu, this bloodthirsty insect valley is very dangerous. Carrying Yan Qingqing will use up a lot of energy. Let her walk on her own. Di Baiming did not even look at her as he strode forward. Chapter 57-61 You're so fat. He Xinzhou turned around and said with a smile, Senior Xiao, are you jealous that I have someone to carry me? You can ask Ji Lingfeng and the others to carry you. However, you're so fat, I'm afraid they can't carry you. Xiao Lianxiao was so angry that she was twitching. How was she fat? She gritted her teeth and said, I can walk on my own. I won't drag others down for my own selfish desires. Yun Chuzhou bared her white teeth and said, What you said makes sense, but Brother Beiyu isn't someone else. He's my wife. B0X. Calm Nangong Shi, who had been silent the entire time, staggered and almost fell. Then, he continued to walk forward with a straight face as if nothing had happened. The next 2 days of gathering went smoothly. Although everyone was slightly injured, they were all fine. Xiao Lianxiao saw that He Xinzhou was still alive and kicking. She gritted her teeth in anger. Every time this damn Yan Qingqing was in danger, Beiyu would arrive in time, so she was not injured at all. No, she had to separate Yan Qingqing from Beiyu. Otherwise, there was no way to get rid of Yan Qingqing. Xiao Lianxiao thought of this and said to Director Xiaofu, Second uncle, it's a little inefficient for us to work together. Moreover, this isn't the core area of the bloodthirsty insect valley. There aren't any overly dangerous demonic insects. Why don't we work in groups? Vice Director Xiaofu naturally knew what Xiao Lianxiao was thinking. He immediately nodded, all right, then we'll do as you say. Ji Lingfeng, Jiang Shuangli, Xiao Lianxiao, and Yan Qingqing will work in a group. You guys will head to the east to collect. Beiyu, Baiyuechen, and Nangong Shi will work in a group. You guys will go to the west to collect. If you encounter any danger, send me a message. I'll immediately head over to support you. Di Baiming saw the look in Yun Chuzhou's eyes and swallowed his words of refusal. Immediately, the two groups moved separately. Xiao Liangqiu's attitude towards Yun Chuzhou was very cordial. Yan Qingqing, your cultivation is the lowest. You must follow us closely, understand? Senior Xiao, I understand. You are really a good person. Yun Chuzhou said gratefully. Xiao Lianxiao avoided her gaze and said, We are classmates of the academy, so we should care about each other. To change the topic, Xiao Lianxiao pointed to the front and said, Do you see the black fruits on the vines? Those are the seeds of the Lingxiao vine. Let's go and collect some. Wait. Jiang Shuangli stopped her and said, There are many bitter peony flowers blooming near the Lingxiao vine. The two-headed giant bee likes the pollen of the bitter peony flowers. Don't rush there. Xiao Lianxiao frowned. But I don't see the two-headed giant bee. How about this, Yan Qingqing, your movement technique is not bad. You go and scout the way. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes. My stomach hurts. Xiao Lianxiao. Ji Lingfeng snorted coldly at the side. Yan Qingqing, we are a team. You can't be sneaky. If you don't go, we won't care about you. Yun Chuzhou sighed, all right, I'll check if there are two-headed giant bees. Xiao Lianxiao was delighted. If there were two-headed giant bees hiding in the flowers, Yan Qingqing would definitely be attacked. She might even die. Xiao Lianxiao was secretly happy, but Yun Chuzhou did not step forward. Instead, she took out a handful of stones from her storage ring and threw them at the flowers. As she threw them, she said, I don't understand. Why do you have to go over and scout? Why don't you just throw a few stones? Xiao Lianxiao and the other two. Chapter 5762 only had a different division of labor. The pebble fell into the flower bush, but there was no abnormal reaction. Xiao Lianxiao and the other two, whose faces were stiff, ignored He Xinjiu and walked past her. He Xinjiu pursed her lips. She was so stupid that she still wanted to scheme against her. Hee hee. She swaggered behind the three to the front of the skyscraping vine. The skyscraping vine clung to the trees and even climbed to the top of the tall trees. There were many sharp thorns on the vine, so one had to be extra careful when picking the fruits. B0x. Calm. When Xiao Lianxiao was picking the fruits, she found that Yun Chuzhou did not make a move, but was standing at the side shamelessly. She immediately scolded, "Yan Qingcheng, you are slacking again." Yun Chuzhou looked innocent. "I am not slacking. You are all picking the seeds, I am in charge of vigilance. What if there were demonic insects or demonic beasts attacking? We just have different division of labor. It's not right for you to criticize me like this." Xiao Lianxiao choked so hard that she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. However, what Yun Chuzhou said made sense. "Since that's the case, you pick the fruits, and you'll be in charge of being on guard," Xiao Lianxiao said with a livid face. "Senior Xiao, you're from the alchemy division, so you're more familiar with medicinal herbs. As for me, I'm a waste. What if I pick the wrong ones? So it's better for me to be in charge of being on guard. Senior Xiao, you'd better hurry up and work. Don't slack off." By talking to Xiao Lianxiao was so angry that she gritted her teeth. As she was distracted, her hand was cut by the spike on the Lingxiao vine, and she immediately cried out in surprise. Ji Lingfeng quickly went up to her. "Junior sister Lianxiao, are you okay? Hurry up and bandage it. Yan Qingcheng, junior sister Lianxiao is injured. Let junior sister Lianxiao be in charge of vigilance. You come and pick the fruit." Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. "Senior sister Xiao, if you want to be in charge of guarding, just say it. Do you have to intentionally break your hand? Your bodice hair and skin are damaged by your parents. You don't dare to damage them. You've been filial since the beginning. What you've done is too unfilial." Xiao Lianxiao was so angry that she was dumbfounded. "No need, I can hold on." Xiao Lianxiao gritted her teeth and said. "Good, very good." Initially, she wanted to kill this Yan Qingcheng without leaving a trace. Since she was courting death, then she didn't have to worry too much. Even if she found an opportunity to kill Yan Qingcheng, Ji Lingfeng and Jiang Shuangli wouldn't betray her. Moreover, the person leading the team was her second uncle. In the end, this matter could only be put to rest. As for Bei Yu, he was only bewitched by this bitch, Yan Qingcheng. Once she died, as time passed, he would forget about it. Therefore, Yan Qingcheng must die. At this moment, Yun Chuzhou pointed into the distance and said, "The honey maker is here." Xiao Lianxiao and the other two were dumbfounded. What did she mean by "the honey maker is here"? When they saw a large patch of black fog rushing over from afar, their expressions changed drastically. Jiang Shuangli exclaimed, "It's that wo-headed giant bee. Quickly leave this place. Quick." Before Jiang Shuangli could finish his words, Yun Chuzhou ran away, in a blink of an eye. Jiang Shuangli and the other two were speechless. The three of them gritted their teeth and followed closely behind. This Yan Qingcheng was not enthusiastic about anything else, but she was very enthusiastic about running away. The two-headed giant bees stopped chasing after them after a distance. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. Ji Lingfeng said angrily, "Yan Qingcheng, not only are you sneaky and cunning, you only care about running away when you encounter danger. You've gone too far." Yun Chuzhou rolled her eyes. "A person must have a conscience. If I didn't give you a warning, you would have already been stung until your faces were covered. It's fine if you don't appreciate me, but you actually have the nerve to blame me?" You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.